What up? What up? What up? It's Ibn Webb, Webb Quran Assam. Another official thing situation going down here. Actually, at a Essex County All Day edition, I'm doing. Those who grew up in Orange know know this guy, especially if you play basketball here. But just from businesses to coaching to being a father now, grandfather, he's had his hands in a lot of things, a lot of things. Atari Salahuddin, like I said, we know him as Atari. Like I said, I had opportunity to play against him a few summers, but just sat and watched as he just, molded a lot of men, women as well too. So like I said, just looking forward to just hearing the story a little bit and just connecting with him. Like I said, this has just been great. So thanks to everybody. I mean, those who watch, those who participate, whatever the case is. Like I said, I'm just totally, totally, totally grateful. So just thank you to everybody. Hold tight. You talk about you couldn't do this stuff. You look
Well,
like a guy can
I
cook.
got my grandson here, man.
Okay. Hey,
He's
what's up?
that's my technical advisor.
Okay, okay. Yeah, smooth transition, smooth transition. Again, like I said, I'm Ibn, and we've talked a little bit, obviously, prior to this. Um, like I said, I'm just so taken back, by you just having the opportunity to jump on. And again, though growing up in Orange, I didn't have an opportunity to go to Orange High, but just even being a kid and just from the Elmwood Parks to the Central Playgrounds to everything else, said you just being a staple in a lot of people's lives here. And like I said, so that's why I'm just like very, very humble and just taken back by the opportunity for you to even spend some time with me here.
Well, I want to thank you because I can tell you, I talked to a few of the ex-players, and you brought life back to them, man. You brought back good memories, and
Hmm.
sometimes some of them, that's what they have to hold on to.
Yeah.
And so I commend you, man, because I'm telling you, they're all excited. You understand? And I think you're bringing into light really the greatness, and I don't use that word lightly, but the greatness of Orange basketball and the history of Orange basketball. So they were good in football and other sports, but basketball is what they were known throughout the state for decades.
Hmm.
So and you brought that back, and you put smiles on a lot of these guys, man. And I'm happy you brought back the history, and I hope that my small part will be an inspiration for other people to reach back and help young people, because that's
Yes.
what it's about. So I'm happy to have that to be on with you, and let's get going.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, with all that being said, I know whether it's Orange, whether it's down in East Orange, running your businesses everywhere else, like where did the life of Atari start? Like, where are you from when it's all said and done?
I was born and raised in Montclair.
Okay.
I played football at Montclair High School for 4 years. Um, I really got started. We actually had the first Black Student Union and a registered organization in the state, which we did a great podcast for because they for the African for Black History Month. And actually, I joined BCD with a man named Belozi Zaid Muhammad, Robert Harvey. He was the head of BCD, who started mentoring me, and that's really was the impetus behind me mentoring other kids, because I saw a lot of kids like myself. I was a little wild and crazy, a little on the edge. All I knew was that we had to do something for African American and brown people's rights. And Belozi was an inspiration to me. Uh, I was blessed to have a full scholarship to Hampton University, but I had decided that the movement was more important. And I had told Belozi that I was not going to go to college, that I was going to stay and be in the organization. He told me he would put me out of the organization, that I had to go to college. You understand? And so that was the impetus for me, because I don't know which way I was going. I actually had gotten arrested with two friends of mine 2 weeks before I was supposed to go to college. They charged me with aiding and abetting one of bank robbers. So those were the people that I was hanging out with. Uh, and I thank God for a man like Belozi who
Hmm.
guided me. So that was my impetus to saying, okay, I'm going to give back.
Yeah.
And as far as giving back, I started coaching Orange High School summer league basketball in 1977. I had always coached college. I always coached in the pro-am leagues, but I had not coached high school. What happened was they had a league, a high school league at MCAP, which was in Glenfield Park in Montclair. And a young man named Sandy Hunter, who was working in the park staff, he had told me that Orange did not have a coach. And I said, Sandy, you know, I don't like to coach high school kids because my coaching style was a little rough and a little tough, very hard. And I really did, I prefer coaching in the semi-pro leagues and the pro leagues and in the college. He said, well, they have a great young player. He's a sophomore. His name is Robert Cole. Mm-hmm. He said, I'm telling you, Hatari, you will love coaching this kid. I said, well, okay, Sandy, I'll coach him for a couple of games till you can find someone else. And of course, I ended up coaching for 25 more years every summer, starting with that. And of course, Robert Cole went on to be one of the greatest Orange players in the history of Orange. He went on, he was only 5'7", and he went on to be first team All-State. Back in those days, in the 80s, we didn't have a tournament of champions. They had a ranking. Camden was ranked number 1, and Orange was ranked number 2 by the Star Ledger. And he went on to LIU and was the all-time leading scorer for LIU and took them to the NCAA tournament. So, and he was a part of, he continuously played for me through high school and college in the pro-am leagues. We played in the pro-ams where you had to win New Jersey, and then we went to Milwaukee and played in the Nationals. We went to Dallas and played in the National. So he continued to play with me until he retired.
Yeah. Can I just swing back just a little bit? You mentioned you got a scholarship. Was that academic or athletic scholarship?
That was academic.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, it was academic, and I ended up because that was in the heart of the Black Power movement, and we ended up taking over the administration building, and actually 5 of us who were the biggest militants on campus, we threw eggs, which I'm not proud of this, you shouldn't do these things, but we had asked the administration not to use our money. We had $15,000, but this was a lot of money back then for Black cultural events. Yeah. And what they did, the administration brought in an Italian orchestra, a French pianist. They brought in everything for the Caucasians in the township of Hampton and not for the African-American students. So we had told them that don't do it. So we threw eggs, and they actually called my mother and father and told them that I would be arrested if I wasn't off campus by 12 o'clock. Me and the other 5 top militants, they didn't know who did it because everybody stood up to cover us. And but we had a hearing, nobody would testify. So I ended up staying that year, and I graduated with my BA degree in history from Rutgers.
Okay, interesting. And you talked about even Montclair. Obviously, you said you played football, so obviously Montclair being a huge sports town. What position did you play?
You won't believe this. I played left guard.
Okay.
I played all 4 years. I started, and back in those days, used to play both ways if you could play. I played left guard and middle guard, which in those days, because everybody ran the ball, we played 5-man line. So I played left guard, and we were in our junior year, we were state champs. Lenny Coleman was the star back then. He ended up being the first African American president of the National League in baseball, which was a great honor. So yeah, I did play. I played football. Roger Terry, who was a councilman, he was a deputy chief. He was the running back, and we got honored one time. He said, "Well, the only reason why," and I said, "Well, I have to block for these big guys." He said, "Well, the only reason why you couldn't do that because you had no wheels, and the only way you would get on the field was play the line." So, but I did play left guard.
Okay, now was it Coach Fortunato back then, or was
Fortunato, Clary Anderson, who they named the field after, was the head coach. Butch Fortunato was the line coach.
Okay.
So Clary Anderson, when he retired, then Butch Fortunato became the head coach.
Okay. Now I played a little bit on Little League and the Cobras in Montclair, so I kind of know a little bit about Montclair.
But then football in Montclair is like basketball was in East Orange and Orange. Yeah. I mean, football is everything in Montclair. It still is today. I mean, when we were young, everybody wanted to play on the football team. If you played basketball, it was okay. If you played baseball, it was okay. But football was everything in Montclair, and which is, and we've had a rich tradition of football in Montclair.
Interesting. And then even I know you talked about being down in Hampton or just college in general. Like, why you obviously doing a lot of things as far as blacks or what have you, as far as empowerment. Like, were you thinking about your next steps in life, or you just that early like teen, early 20s, you figure it out as you go?
My grandson's mother was doing a report, and she asked me because she interviewed me,
Hmm.
and but she didn't want to interview me about boxing. She didn't want to interview me about basketball. She wanted to interview me what made my mindset that I was so intense in the movement.
Hmm.
And I told her that when I was very, very young, and of course you're too young to remember this, and most of the people who are going to hear this or see this don't remember, but we used to turn on our TV and we used to watch Bull Connor and those other Southern racists put dogs on our black women and our black men, and put hoses on them and beat them down. And being from the North, and all this was happening in the South, it had a profound effect on me. And I said, there's something that I have to do to help my people. And I was like 11, 12 years old, and it stuck with me. And that really was the motivating me to be in the BCD, Black Community for Defense. It was the motivation for us to start the Black Student Union. It was the motivation for me to join the Nation of Islam. And it was the motivation for me to, after Elijah Muhammad died, of course, I continued in the Sunnah. For those people who might not know, that's what some people call a traditional Islam. But that was my motivation, just saying, what could I do to help
Hmm.
our people? When you see our people getting brutalized and dogs sicked on them, and sometimes I tell my children, my grandchildren, that you guys don't know what a lot of people went through. Okay. And now they're trying to take back the voting rights.
Right.
After we fought and suffered and died, now they're trying to take it back again. So for us as African Americans, the struggle never ends. It doesn't end because we have a black president. It doesn't end because some of us have a 2-car garage. It doesn't end because, we can go to the mall and give them a credit card. Okay. We're still in the struggle, and we have to remember that.
Nah, definitely. Especially, I mean, I know a lot of things have been like magnified in the last few years, but this is eons. This is hundreds of years of all this stuff here. But I think the one plus with technology is you still can follow up and get the information. Obviously, you got double, triple check everything because folks will just throw anything out there. But I think my age and younger here, like some of the stuff we can do a lot more digging, a lot faster as far as just getting information. And you talk about like the history and all that as far as just blacks here. Again, it's so much history behind us and where we at and why we are who we are, the perseverance and everything else with us here. So like just to hear like you had both feet in as far as around a lot of these movements or just things going on. Like I said, like I'm just honored just to hear that. Like I said, because I now I still do some work obviously around black men, and I do work on racial justice and in other capacities here. So I know how important all that stuff is, and we got to continue to not only be aware but be consistent with it. It's just not a checkbox for a lot of companies and organizations. Oh yeah, we did this for blacks. Let's check that off. Nah, we can't do that. We got to keep our foot on their neck until things are the way they need to be, and even when they need to be, still keep our foot on their neck so they make sure it's going to stay that way.
No, you're right. And I always mentored the kids that I was involved with, from the mayors, Ted Green, to the boys, whoever I was mentoring at the time. I always told them, say, remember one thing, it's a 100-yard dash and they're starting on the 50-yard line.
Mm.
That means you got to work that much harder. You have to give more. When they're asleep, you have to be working. And I said, because that's just the way it is. Okay. And until we change it, until we have real equality, okay, we have to push like that. And we have to motivate ourselves for that. If they read one book, you need to read 2 books. If they study for 10 hours, you need to study for 12 hours. And
Hmm.
that's just the way it is. We can
Yeah.
sit around and cry about it, you understand, or we can just keep motivating each other and pushing each other. And I'm happy you mentioned social justice, because, and I always tell the kids and the men that I've mentored, You know, sports are good, but that's just a vehicle.
Yes.
Sports is just a way to get you self-discipline. Sports is a way to keep your body and your mind clean, because you're not going to compete on a high level if you want to get high and drink and act the part of a fool. Okay, not on a high level. You can do that in the park, but not when you're talking about winning championships and being all that you can be. So a lot of times, in my case, it was the religion that helped me not to smoke and drink and live a clean life. But some other cases is the fact that I want to be able to compete.
Hmm.
So we just have to do more than just the physical. It's the
Yes.
mental.
Yes. Oh no, definitely, definitely. And then speaking about competing and coaching, like when did all that you decide to be like, you know what, I'm a coach? Not even obviously later as Orange, but you talk about college and pro, like sports is
I,
obviously in you.
yeah, God bless me, and we always emphasize that God blesses us. I just had a way of communicating with young people.
Okay.
I had a way, and God blessed me to have a way of communicating young people. I played basketball, but like I said, in high school, um, football was everything.
Hmm.
But if you look at coaching, it's Magic Johnson was a great player, but he was a terrible coach. Bob Cousy, before your time, was a great player, was a terrible coach. You'll find that most of your top coaches, like Pat Riley and Phil Jackson, they were bench players. So it's not always the fact that you play, just sometimes you have an understanding of the game. And my edge was that I had a relationship with my guys greater than basketball. Therefore, I could push them and push them and push them and get them to the max where other coaches couldn't do it. Because why? Because they know it wasn't just about basketball. I was going to be within their life 24/7. So I pushed them hard. I taught them discipline, and I always stressed the fundamentals. Orange, okay, there was no such thing as quit. Every game, whether it was 2 or 3 thousand people in the summer league or in the stands, or it was just 2 or 3 people, they were going to play hard. Every game was important, and I didn't push them so that I could get the glory, because I never even applied for a coaching job. I coached East Orange youth games for 3 years. Okay, I never asked for anything from the board education. I never asked for anything from recreation. I never asked them to give me an old van and let me take the players to. We even had league. We even played sometimes in Persian Field in Jersey City. We played in Elmwood Park. We played in Montclair. So I would have to take them. It wasn't about the glory,
Hmm.
because God tells us in Scripture, don't cancel out your charities by reminders of your generosity. So
Yeah.
that's not what I'm doing. What I'm saying is that all that I was able to accomplish with the help of God, being the deputy mayor of the largest city in the state, running the largest juvenile jail, doing boxing, being Muhammad Ali's bodyguard, all that stuff is good. But I get more satisfaction in looking at those kids that I know that I played a small part, and watching them be productive in society and not a detriment to society. And I know that I played a part in that. And when they see me, their eyes light up and they're happy to see me. That is the reward. It had nothing to do with money or accolades or pats on the back. So that was always my motivation. And it got to the point where I coached for so many years that the head coaches, which was Blake, Al Thompson, and Martin, they just said, well, they can take the summer off, because they knew I had it. And to their credit,
Hmm.
and and this is what we have to do. And I'm gonna be a little circuitous for a minute. Just go off. We as Black men, especially Black men, we have to stop what we call hating on each other.
Hmm.
We have to realize that it takes a village to raise a child.
Right.
And these two men knew that I had a special connection with them. So they never was envious or jealous of the fact that the kids might lean toward me. They always gave me access to the locker rooms. They always let me sit behind the bench. They always discussed strategy with me. And it paid off, because I gave you, when we were talking earlier, at least 3 or 4 incidents where kids had quit. When I
Hmm.
say quit, these were stars. Okay, they actually quit. I mean, Robert Cole actually quit, and he would not have went on to be first team All-State, and we would not have that state championship. So I was the one who had to get to him. Robert Skipper walked off the court in the middle of a game.
Mm.
We won the tournament of champions, one of the few public schools, and we were a group 3 school. We weren't even a group 4 school like Camden and the bigger school. We were a group 3 school, and he actually walked off. So, but I had a different relationship with them. You see, so these are the things, and we work together. So I want to mention those two men, especially Al Thompson. Blake is no longer with us, but Al Thompson, who I understand is ill. And I hope that, and I spoke to some people, to some of the players in Orange, that we can do something to honor him. Not that he's going to die, he's just ill, but I think he needs to be honored because, you know, he had a great run.
Yes. No, he definitely did. And I know you talk about with kids, because kids they got the best BS meter in the world. So it's kind of like, you know what I mean? So they know when you're full of it. They know everything else here as far as adults here, you know, so they know when you genuine, you real, and you know, you totally authentic, and you know, they know. And I
Yeah.
think, and to your point, you mentioned as far as you just knew you had this knack, this innate knack to, as far as to connect with them here, as far as the coaching. But the X's and even the X's and O's, like you mentioned football primarily early on, like were you reading like Coaches for Dummies, or were you, I mean, like
well, see, what a lot of coaches make their mistake is they don't coach to their strength. So what I did is that Orange was always known for guards, going back to great times, who I know you did a great interview with, and all the way to Robert Cole and Mike Boyd and Corey Boyd and the Hill brothers, and they were always known for guards. So what we did, we ran our offense around guards. We put and we pressed and ran. We used our strength.
No, like to your point, some coaches, even like sticklers, want to stick with their system. It's got to work, but you're right. But you adjust to your talent.
Phil Jackson is probably the greatest coach of all time, but he still wanted to run the triangle when the game was spread out, pick and roll and shoot threes. But Phil was just, you know, so he's with the Knicks, you know, after all these championships he won, he's still trying to run the daggone triangle. So what we did in Orange, I got to tell you one story. It's the only time I ever did this in all the years of 25 years, but we were playing Montclair with the Robert Cole team. And our biggest guy was 6'3", was Billy Coleman.
Okay.
Mitchell was the center. He was built like a bull, but he was 6'2", and we played a 3-guard offense. And we played Montclair 3 times that year, because in those days, when you were a baby, it used to be the Big Ten.
Right.
So we played Montclair twice, one home, one away, and one in the Essex County tournament. Well, Montclair had Craig Robinson, who was 6'9", who played 4 years with Ralph Sampson at the University of Virginia. And everybody knows Ralph Sampson. He was 7'2", 7'4", one of the greatest centers that ever played. They had Hines, who was 6'7". That was their front line, 6'9", 6'7", and Lenny Jackson, who was 6'5". And they had Hurt, who was the point guard. So they were 6'9", 6'7", and 6'5". And our biggest guy was 6'3". So we were playing at Montclair, and because we played them 3 times, they knew our system, and we played them, you know, every year. So it was the only time I ever did that. So they knew our plays. So I went down. I didn't tell Blake, but I went down to the end, on our end, and I started calling our summer league plays. Right? Of course, it's the only time I ever did that, right? So I'm talking about LA, DC, Indiana. So I'm calling out our plays, and they knew them by heart because they grew up on them since they were freshmen. That's not why we won, but we beat that team 3 times that year. And our biggest player was 6'3" against that size. And Montclair had a good team, but that was the heart and determination that they had, and that's why they were ranked second in the entire state.
Yeah, and to your credit, as you mentioned even earlier, as far as coaches, kind of, you know, everybody wanted to do well and by these kids, and it sounded like Coach Blake heard you, probably just let you do your thing, and
I think he knew. I mean, he was a smart guy, but to his credit, they never interfered with that. It was always about winning. It's not about ego.
Yes. Yeah, and you mentioned with the kids too, like you don't know how much a car ride means as far as picking somebody up or dropping them off after a game, like, versus walking home or having to catch the bus or just trying to figure it out. So, and I know you've shared that, like, I always say a car ride, you can learn a whole lot about somebody in the car ride. I don't care if it's 10 minutes or 2 hours. Like,
Well,
I mean,
unfortunately, with Orange, I would say 90% of our kids were
mhm,
either in the projects, but I would tell you 90% of our kids had single parents. Okay. And most of them had a mama or a grandmother. And I
mhm.
know you interviewed the boys, and
No, I didn't get Mike yet. I got Mike.
well,
He
you got
dancing. He
Corey.
dancing on me. I'm gonna get him though.
No, he wants to do it. And like Corey, I knew his mother, of course, never saw his father. And most of these kids, like Robert, I never met Robert. For all the years he's with me, I never saw his father. I
Mhm.
met his mother, but most of these kids didn't have a father. So, and as high school kids, we really want discipline and leadership. We really want somebody that we know we can come and talk to. And without a father, I had to play on many occasions. Robert Skipper was another one. I had to play the role of the father. And like you said, you can't trick kids. They'll open up to you if they feel close to you. So I cannot begin to tell you issues and things of just everyday life. It had nothing to do with basketball, nothing to do with less press, less
Mhm.
fast break, none of that. It had stuff to do with they had to have somebody they could go to. And of course, a lot of times they didn't want to coach to know certain things. I told you about the time that Corey Boyd, who I know you did, who used to call me dad, and I told you that when I walked out in front of 80,000 people at the University of South Carolina on senior day,
Mhm.
and his grandmother, and I was introduced as his father, and his grandmother was introduced as his mother, and there's 80,000 people in the stands, and of course I went to his graduation. I was proud of him.
Yes.
But when he didn't show up for practice for 2 days, Martin had to call me and says, "Hey man, your son hasn't come to practice for 2 days." Well, and no one could find him because he had the tattoo and he was scared he was going to sweat and get the infection. So I had to go get him. I said, "Well, man, you've disrespected your coach because at least you could have told him." So I had to pick him up. He says, "Salahuddin, can you find him?" I said, "Yeah, I'll get him." And I brought him to practice.
Mm.
So these are things that have nothing to do with X and O's. These are things and I also tell you the time when Lou Holtz recruited him. The famous Lou Holtz was the coach of the New Jersey Jets, New York Jets, and was also the last time Notre Dame won a championship. Lou Holtz was the head coach, and he came to the projects, and he didn't want to cut his hair. And Mike had told him, says, "Coach, the only one he'll listen to was me." He pointed to me, and he was, hollering about he was Samson and all this stuff. So I had to take him in the back, and he ended up going to the University of South Carolina and had a great career. He started 3 of the 4 years he was there, played for Lou Holtz and Steve Spurrier, and he got his diploma. So
Yes.
these are the things that are outside of basketball.
Yeah.
These are the things. And why do I tell these kind of stories? Do I tell them for the accolades? No, I'm way past needing the accolades. I'm telling them so people who see this podcast and see this know that it's not money. Of course, I always gave them money if they needed money, but it's not about money. It's about being there for them and guiding them. So hopefully, other people will be inspired by this and say. And I always say this to you. I always say, Ibn, and I'll say it like this. And this, when I was the director of the juvenile jail, and I would go speak in many places, and they said, "What more can we do?" It's like this. That Johnny or Tariq does not have a father, but it's a PTA meeting. So
Mhm.
why don't you go and represent Giant Tariq, you understand, not as their father, but as an adult that's concerned about it. You know that you having a barbecue, and you know that Johnny and Tariq can't really don't eat well. Why don't you invite them over? You know
Mhm.
you get ready to drop your kids to the movies, but you know Johnny and Tariq don't have any money. So what would it hurt you to pick up Johnny and Tariq and say, "Hey man, here's $10 to get in. Here's $10. Get yourself some popcorn and stuff." That doesn't cost us a lot of money. It's just a matter of being conscious of trying to provide the small things, the little things that maybe can help turn that kid around.
No, definitely. And you're doing all of this even with your own. you have your own kids, and you have
Yeah.
obviously extended family with the athletes, student athletes. But it's a heck of a juggling act you've been pulling off between that and everything else you had going on. Like, how'd you do all of this?
Well, to be honest with you, I think it's due to the discipline of the martial arts,
Okay.
and I also think is because uh, in El Islam we are taught, okay, we're not going to be judged, okay, on whether we had a Mercedes or a BMW or Grand Cherokee. We're going to be judged on the day of judgment. Is what did you do? What I gave you, what Allah, what I blessed you with.
Mhm.
So, uh, Scripture says, "He who has made you viceroys of the earth and have exalted you in rank above others, so he may try you by that which he has given you." So for those who might not be up on their Bible or the Quran, viceroys was an old term for rulers. Okay. So what God is telling us, he who has made you rulers of this earth and have exalted some of you rank above others, so he may try you by that what he has given you. So God gave me the things that I was able to do. I was able to have the things and maintain my family and support my family. Okay. So that enabled me to spend a lot of time and energy and resources to other people's kids who didn't have the blessings that I had. So
Yeah,
that was
yeah,
my
yeah.
motivation rather.
Basketball, martial arts, tennis, everything that just kind of just again just hands in everything here. Then I know, and I know I might be yo-yoing back and forth with different things here, but I know even with when did your interest like even in boxing come about?
um, I was in 1973. James Anderson was Muhammad Ali's bodyguard. He was from Newark,
Hmm.
and he asked me to join him as Muhammad Ali's bodyguard, which was a great honor because, of course, everybody, all the what we used to call the FOI, the Fruit of Islam, everybody wanted to be Muhammad Ali's bodyguard. You get to travel the world, you with the champ. So I became Muhammad Ali's bodyguard. Okay, even past when he stopped fighting. I told you I was going to send you the pictures. I have pictures. I have two pictures of when he's actually in East Orange, and he was testifying for a friend of his in court. So what we would do after he retired, if he was coming to the East Coast, because he was living in California after he retired, if he was coming to the East Coast, they would just call and say, Atari, the champ would be at the airport, pick him up so and so, or the champ has to go to Atlantic City, or the champ has to go here, and then we would go get him and take care of him. So my interest in boxing started as a bodyguard for Muhammad Ali, and which a lot of people, even to the day, when I joined the sheriff department, the African Americans knew, and they were just talking like, he used to be Muhammad Ali's bodyguard. So all the white guys, he wasn't Muhammad Ali's bodyguard. So one day I didn't say a word, I just took the pictures. And I said, that's why I say a picture's worth 1,000 words. So that's when we first got started. And then in 1975, 76, I joined Murad Muhammad with Eminem Sports. And I was the vice president of Eminem Sports. And of course, Murad, being from Newark, at one time we had the whole light heavyweight division. We had Saad Muhammad as a light heavyweight WBA champ. We had Eddie Mustafa Muhammad was the WBA champion, WBC rather, and then we had Kwawi Muhammad. And the promoter was Muhammad, and Bilal Muhammad was Saad's manager, and another Muhammad was Eddie's, Baha Muhammad was Eddie's manager. So we started, okay, in the 80s with boxing. And of course, we had the Razor Ruddock, who fought Mike Tyson before Mike went to jail. So those were two great pay-per-view fights. We fought them twice. They stopped the fight prematurely in the 6th round. And the last time he went the distance. He went the distance. So Mike told me in the ring, I was very close to Mike. He says, man, he is like a effing mule. He didn't say effing, you know what he said. So he says, man, I ain't fighting him no more. He says, Atari, I ain't fighting him no more. And then, of course, we had Roy Jones Jr., Okay, and we did a fight at Radio City Music Hall, never been done before. And you'll like this. Now you'll like this. So we want to do something different with Roy Jones. So we said we didn't want to go to the Garden. He said, how can we do a fight at Radio City Music Hall? You're going to bring out a different element. I cannot make this up. This all can be verified. Whitney Houston sung our national anthem. Method Man and Redman, they broke, because Roy thought he was a rapper.
Yeah.
So they were on both sides. So Whitney Houston is singing. Now here we have Whitney Houston singing the national anthem to open up. We're in Radio City Music Hall. And to her credit, she charged us, I think, 15 or 20, and that was just for the music and accommodations, right?
Yeah, she's being nice. She's being nice.
She's being nice. And Method Man and Redman brought Roy in. Of course, Roy is rapping. And then he fought, and then before the fight, now he's rapping with them, and then we had the fight, and it brought out. I mean, the Sopranos were there. Mike Lee, Samuel Jackson. I mean, because it was Radio City Music Hall. It wasn't the Garden, so you had all the people saying Radio City Music. That's chic. So we had Roy Jones do it, and of course. We had a lot of other fighters, but I'm only giving you the ones that everybody knows. And of course, we had Manny Pacquiao. We had Manny Pacquiao was promoted under Murad Muhammad and myself, and we got him his first title. We had him when he won the title against Barrera. We had him when he first fought his first two fights under Marquez. And of course, he just lost, which was sad to me. But we had Manny Pacquiao. We even did a fight in the Philippines. They drew almost 35,000 people. He's loved in the Philippines. So I got involved with boxing with Murad Muhammad, and we started promoting. I understood the game because being around the great Muhammad Ali, and then it was like, and he actually started out being around Ali, and he says, you know what, we can promote. We just don't have to protect Ali. We can promote, and that's how I got involved with boxing.
Now,
which took me around the world. And boxing is a great sport, and you get to meet people. It's unbelievable because everybody you can have the lowest person they quote what they think is in society, and you can have kings and queens in the audience. I mean, you can have presidents. You can have everybody comes to boxing matches. When we fought Mike Tyson, and I told Murad, it was Michael Jordan was there. Bruce Willis was there, Sylvester Stallone. I mean, Patrick Ewing, John Thomas. You just name somebody, and they all come out to a heavyweight championship fight, no matter what status or what status in life they are. So boxing has been very good to the African American. However, it's sort of dying now because they don't fight like they used to fight. Back then, guys fought, but now everybody is like, that's why Pacquiao fought Mayweather 5 years after it was too late. Yeah. He was past his prime.
Now, you mentioned it as far as the who's who at these matches, like just how electric this was the atmosphere. I mean, again, I know you're in the ring, sometimes before or after the fight, just how electric is
it? I would tell anyone that go to a heavyweight championship fight, and you can imagine everybody wanted to see Mike Tyson. Everybody wanted to see Muhammad Ali. When the picture I'm going to send you is the picture of us coming out of the ring in 1978 in the Superdome when he fought Leon Spinks after Spinks had beat Ali.
The second fight.
The second fight. There was 78,000 people at a boxing match. Not at a football game, not at a Saints game. This is a boxing match. You could not get in. It was 78,000 people. And Ali had lost to Spinks, and he trained, and then he beat Spinks in that fight. And when I came, the picture I'm going to send you, we're in a triangle, three of us, and you see the police on the outside, but we're on the inside bringing them out. When we got back to the dressing room, my suit was totally ripped because people were reaching. They just wanted to touch Ali, and they were just grabbing, trying to touch Ali. And I looked up my pocket. Everything was tore up. But I didn't care about the suit. But that's the electricity that you have in these fights, man. It's really, really unbelievable.
Now, being that close to Muhammad Ali, if it's something, one thing as far as that we don't know about him, what would it be that you could think of offhand?
Listen. Of course, there's certain things about Ali that will go to my grave along
No,
with everybody.
no, definitely,
But
definitely.
I will say this. I will say this to you. I never saw Muhammad, and I laugh at these celebrities, these so-called athletes who won't sign autographs. All the years I was with Ali, I never saw him refuse an autograph. I never saw him be disingenuous or harsh or talk to people as if they were. If Ali was sitting here now, he would talk to you like he knew you for 100 years. That's the way he was. They did a retirement party for him, and Channel 5, it was a big party, and Channel 5 televised it. And we got back to the hotel. It must have been maybe 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning. And he had not eaten all day. So we went to the restaurant and we ate. This true story, cannot make this up. So of course we set up a perimeter, because he's Muhammad Ali, people were coming in and out. And we said, listen, please let the champ eat. The champ has it. I'm pushing him. I'm like, you're not pushing him. I'm saying, I'm holding him back. And he says, Hatari, let him come in. Let him come in. He actually stopped eating. Must have been 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning, and signed people's autographs. Who does that, man?
Yeah.
I mean, what celebrity? And we love all our black celebrities, but who really? That was Muhammad Ali. And you were too young to remember, but this is why Caucasians respected Ali, even though he came out of so-called, we all came out of the Nation of Islam, because there was a Jewish senior citizen home that was about to be closed. They needed $100,000 to stay open. And for whatever reason, they got to Ali, and Ali gave them the $100,000. Now they tried to hush it up, but it got out. So everyone's saying he didn't see color. He didn't see religion. He just saw that this was an old Jewish student. And when that word got out, that's why people, as much as they talk about the war and the Viet Cong never called me nigger and all this other stuff that he did, they loved him. You had to love him. So I never saw a man so giving and generous with his time and his money. And I tell you, I was honored to be able to serve that man.
Yeah.
And I thank God, that I was around him, and he just was a great man.
No, definitely. I mean, ain't enough words to describe how great he was to even yet. Obviously, everyday folks such as myself and others here, like, ain't enough words that could describe him. So,
Because I would say, I'm sorry to cut you off, and this is for the people who need to Google him or whatever we do now to look up information. They talking about the athletes that are making sacrifices now, and I commend LeBron James, and I commend on them. But who gave up 3 years of their prime?
Yes.
For a position that they believed in their prime. I'm not talking about you 35, 36 years old and you're not the moneymaker. Who does that? So when you all talk about athletes who made the greatest sacrifices for social justice, there's Ali and there's everybody else. The man gave up 3.5 years in his prime because he believed in what he said. And that's the inspiration. But who does that? The millions of dollars, forget the millions of dollars he lost. And then when he came back, he lost, of course, to Joe Frazier. But Joe would have never had beat him in his prime. George Foreman would, George they could have never touched him in his prime. But he gave it up because that's what he believed in.
And it's interesting you bring that up here, as far as when you think about even some of the stuff of late people have been trying to do. I know they had, when they was in the bubble, the league, they walked out, as far as they had to walk out on the games. And then obviously you have Kaepernick, who took his position or what have you. I think all all great, but it pales in comparison to what you just mentioned.
But you know what though, I commend this generation, man, because at least they're conscious of it.
Hmm.
You know what I'm saying? And even when the kid got killed in Milwaukee and Milwaukee refused to play, I mean that was a team effort, and it makes us so-called OGs, the
Hmm.
old timers who came up in the movement, who had a part in the movement. It makes us feel good, and what makes us even have more hope is that it's just not us. It's just not black and brown people. You
Hmm.
have Caucasians
Hmm.
that are standing up now. You have Caucasian athletes like Kerr, who's the coach of the Golden State. You know, Popovich speaking out about these things, and so I commend it. I mean, of course, you know Kaepernick, he gave up his career in the
Hmm.
prime of his career. He
Hmm.
gave up his career, you
Yeah.
know. But the problem is that, and this is what we have to work on. How is it that our biggest stars in football, the NFL is 70% African American? How is it that we allow them to let them do that to him? You see what I'm saying?
Right.
We
Yeah.
if the top stars say, hey, man, we're not playing, man, unless you get that man a shot.
Hmm.
You see what I'm saying? But we didn't do that. Even that famous picture that Jalen Rose in his TV program he has in the back, you see Jim Brown.
Oh, the summit, the one with the
Yeah,
summit.
the summit. Yeah, you see Jim Brown, you see Bill Russell, you see Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, you see all these great athletes supporting Muhammad Ali.
Hmm.
You back?
No, we're good. We're good. Somehow on your end got frozen, but we're good. No, just talk about the whole cap thing.
Hey, Evan, you see why I have to have my grandson?
Yeah, now your technical assistant. Hopefully you paying him well. Hopefully you paying him well.
Hey, yeah. He been paying well.
Nah, I'm just saying with the whole NFL, that definitely NFL would have changed their tune if like all the blacks or the key blacks or the better black athletes would have just like, hey, we ain't playing, we riding with Cap. I'm sure they would have changed their tune real quick.
Yeah, but that's something we have to work on, all of us, me, you,
Yes.
and everybody else. We have to realize, man, it's not right for one man to take the hits and take the bows and
Yeah.
the arrows, you know, because listen, he didn't have to do that,
Hmm.
and it all came to fruition, you know, with what happened in Minnesota with
Yes.
Floyd.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So, you know, but now he's lost millions of dollars. Yes, there. But again, you know, his blessings will come because they'll remember him for the next 100 years. They'll remember Kaepernick. They'll still be talking about his name.
Oh no, he'll continue to be blessed.
Yeah.
Definitely. Nah, definitely. Even with other like businesses and things, you have a personality. It seems like you got to stay busy. You got to at least back when, as far as making sure, like I mean, whether you're setting up things for future generations or what have you. But it was always something that just you just had your hands in, whether it's athletics or even outside athletics. And I know working down in Newark as well too, just kind of having your hands and stuff. That was just important to make sure like you just set the tone for not only your kids but your grandkids and everybody.
Well, even there's no sense in us living in America and whatever, and we know we have to deal with
Hmm.
the racism. But I always tell my guys and the guys that I have mentored, man, just don't look at just having a job. Have some
Right.
kind of business. I don't care if you're
Right.
selling hot dogs. Have your own business. Be your own boss. Because in America, all it takes is one idea.
Yes.
And you look at the rap world and how these guys, man, just stay with it. You know, you
Hmm.
look at the entrepreneurship is what we need to do. You're never
Hmm.
going to get rich in America on a job
Hmm.
unless you happen to be a doctor, you know what I mean, or a brain scientist or something like that, or a brain surgeon. So always try to have something going for yourself, no
Yes.
matter how small. Okay. I used to tell my kids when I was the director of the juvenile jail, I said, all y'all, and I run into them now that they're older now. And I said, man, you're selling drugs, but you won't buy that raggedy 3-family house that you walk by every day. Fix it up. You understand? Put your baby's mother in there. You
Hmm.
understand? You live in there, and then when you, and God forbid, when you go to jail, you have something. But
Yes.
yet you'll let the other race, you'll let that the same with the corner store. You understand? When you were when I was your age, all the corner stores are owned by people that look like you and I.
Mm.
And I'm not opposed to the Hispanics. My youngest son is 50% Hispanic.
Hmm.
I speak the language fairly well. It has nothing to do with that. But they looked at that same store that we walked past and made something out of it. Now you go to East Orange, Irvington, and Newark, and I promise you can't find 3 corner stores that's owned by people that look like you and I. That's a
Yeah.
business that we've just given to the Hispanics, the Dominicans, and the Puerto Ricans. We don't even do our own hair anymore, Evan.
Yeah.
You understand? And when we pay rent, you understand, we live in an apartment building, that money, most of that money goes back to Brooklyn for people with the long black coats. Not mad with them,
Hmm.
you understand? But that's where it goes.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? So we've lost all that and we need to get it back. You know
Hmm.
what I mean? And I always tell young people, don't rent. Try to buy, don't you have to start with a big 1-family house in Montclair, Maplewood. Buy yourself a 2 or 3-family house somewhere and
Hmm.
live on one and have income. That way, when you and your wife and you're able to do better and you want to buy that house in Montclair or Glen Ridge or Maplewood, now you have a piece of property as an incoming piece of property.
Yes.
Now you're recognized in this country. You go to the bank and tell them, man, I drive a Mercedes. Man, look at the gold watch I have. I got a Rolex. Look at the gold chain I have. The bank look at you like you're crazy. That's not collateral, sir.
Hmm.
What do you own? So I always encourage young people, get yourself a piece of property. I wouldn't care if you had to go on with your boy. Go on with your boy. So we have to, we have to encourage our young people, our brown and black young people, man, to be a part of America. You have to own something
Hmm.
and get yourself some real estate because it never goes bad. Okay. And stop wasting our money. Yes, I see our people. You go and you go have lunch. You spend $25 and you pull out a credit card, and they charging you 15% to 18%. What sense does that make? Think about something.
Yeah.
Something as innocuous, Ibn, something as minute as something like that. We have to retrain our people. You're paying, so you eat lunch. It costs you $20. So you want to pay the $20 plus the 15% on the credit card. We just pay the guy the $20 that you're done with it. We always want to live past our means because we worship pomp and glitter.
Hmm.
So I always tell the people that I try to mentor through the years is don't worship pomp and glitter. It gets you nowhere. Think about your children and your grandchildren. What are you going to do if God took you right now? What would you leave your children? What do you have to leave your children? What, the Mercedes you have, the gold necklace?
Hmm.
So these are the kind of things that have nothing to do with sports. And that's why I always say, and I say to you, Ibn, sports was a vehicle for me to reach these young men.
Yes.
Being the director of the juvenile jail, I took that job and we are very proud of that job because the first thing I did, Ibn, I don't want to say first thing we did was they were going to school 3.5 hours. The very first thing when I became the director is we changed the school to 5 hours because those kids they're gangsters.
Hmm.
They need schooling more than my kids and your kids. So that's the first thing we did was give them more education.
Yeah. Nah. And to your point with property and land, like they ain't growing no more land. So
No.
nah, it definitely, God bless the child that has his own. My father always instilled that in me. You know what I mean? So I get the whole ownership and everything else too. Like I said, it's out here, and like you said, you don't have to start big. Like I said, even with this here, like I just say, hey, let me just do something totally left of my personality. Because my wife jokes, she's like, you don't even like to talk, So me just even doing this here. So like I said, totally left and out of my comfort zone. But we all got to do that every now and then, to shake it up, shake your life up a little bit. And try some different things, and you just never know what could come out of it.
Yeah, but, and I'm not saying this because this is the other people who have called me that you have interviewed, man.
Okay.
You might not have done it a long time, but you sure can do it well. You got a knack for it. I'm telling you, man. You have a knack for interviewing, and you have a knack for people feel comfortable with talking to you. Everybody's not that way. You know what
Hmm.
I mean? So I would tell you, and I never stop mentoring, so don't excuse me, okay? But I would tell you to pursue this
Yeah.
because you see you're providing a service, man.
Right.
You're putting smiles on people's faces that you can't even see that they're smiling,
Hmm.
because you're bringing back memories and accomplishments that some of these, like I said, some of these guys, all they have is what they did on that basketball court and the accomplishments they had. And now their children, because of your work, their children, their grandchildren can see what they have accomplished.
Yes. No, no, definitely. And like I told you when we spoke before, like I said, my thing was just to, obviously, to your point, to those points, and I think to other things too, whether it's that individual or if it's someone just watching this here, like, hey, my life ain't over. Let me get up off this couch and, get to it. I was that girl, I was that guy. And I'm still that person. Let me get up and get back to this here. I had a little rut, man. We've all had a bunch of ruts, but it's just how you get out of them and keep going. So not definitely. So hopefully it serves multiple purposes here as far as doing this here. But to ask you all, even like with sports, businesses, and everything, what has all that taught you that stuck with you to this day?
What has taught me is to be humble
Hmm.
and to remember God
Yes.
and to thank God every day for the blessings that I have.
Hmm.
That I'm sitting here in a home that I bought 36 years ago that I own now.
Hmm.
And I'm sitting here with my grandson, who's 14 years old, who was on a full scholarship going to private schools,
Yes.
and who can teach his granddaddy how to get on a computer and how to use computers.
Hmm.
So it taught me, uh, the Bible says, if you humble yourself, God will exalt you. So what it has taught me is to be humble and to take the Quran says that if you are mindful of a few things, I will make you master of many things.
Yes.
So every job or every task that I was given or that I undertook, no matter whether it was just teaching a kid, how to play defense the right way, or it's teaching a kid how to aim at the front of the rim for a foul shot, or whether it was being a deputy mayor of public safety, uh, in charge of trying to get the murder rate down. And so it taught me that, or when I first joined the sheriff department, you understand, they gave me a job that they told me to go clean out the basement and go through whatever job it was, I was going to be the best cleaning out that basement.
Hmm. Yes.
So what has taught me is that, and this is the message that I would send to whoever watches this, and what I've always told young people, no matter how minute or insignificant or innocuous you think a job is, do it the best you can. I tell my kids and my grandkids, listen, when you're going to clean the house, clean it right. Something that you just take for granted.
Yes.
So so I have learned that we don't know, only God knows how long we're going to be here.
Hmm.
But the time that we here, don't waste it. I try to study. Even today, I try to read and study, uh, a little bit, whether it's a half an hour, 45 minutes. I try to read every day, something.
Hmm.
I used to tell a lot of the kids, and the mayor was telling somebody, Mayor Ted Green of East Orange, he was telling people the other day, he said, this man used to make me read the newspaper and jot down the words that I didn't understand and keep them in a book and look them up. And one day I asked Mr. Mayor, telling somebody about what I used to do with him. He said, one day I said, why the newspaper? I said, because those are the words that people are commonly using. I said, I don't want you to read some book that was written 200 years ago, and some words that people don't use. And so I've just learned that, again, God has given me a lot. And whether you're a Muslim, a Christian, or a Jew, we all believe that there is a day of judgment. And
Yes.
I don't want God the question to be asked of me, well, what did you do with what I gave you? That's what motivates me. I
Hmm.
want to be able to say, I gave back what you gave me, whether it's knowledge, wisdom, or understanding. And that's what motivates me.
Hmm. Nah, nah, nah. That's good stuff. Good stuff here. And again, I appreciate the time here, bro. Nah, if you got a few more minutes for me here, just I will just
Sure, I
put
got
you
a
on the
few
spot.
more.
Cool,
Okay, go
cool,
ahead.
cool, cool. So I like to do this with everybody. Just kind of put them on the spot here with some questions here. So obviously driving. Do you prefer the parkway or the turnpike?
I prefer the Parkway because it's not the big trucks.
Yeah. Trust me, they could be a pain. Uh, Bloomfield Ave, Montclair, or Central Ave, Orange.
Uh, that's a good question. That's a good. You trying to put me on the spot. I was born and raised in Montclair, Coast on. Bloomfield Avenue, Montclair.
Okay. Nah, how come?
Well, it's because Bloomfield Avenue takes you into so many different towns. So
Yeah,
even if you're in Montclair, you know what I mean? If you know, I can go all the way up to West Carwell to the original House of Pancakes, or I can go all the way down
oh, I
to
forgot about that.
the north. You understand what I'm saying? So
Yeah,
Bloomfield Avenue take you whatever you need, okay, whether it's food or whatever you need, or something you have to buy. If
yeah.
you're in Bloomfield Avenue, Montclair, you can get the Central Avenue, not so much.
Pancake house. I remember that. Yeah. What the peppermint or bogeys?
Well, come on, man. You know, I will say this to you, and we had a staff meeting one time,
Okay.
and myself and Reuben Johnson, and I was talking about. I said, listen, I said you're at Bogies. I said the Peppermint Lounge is closed, Scott's Manor is closed, the back door is closed, the living room's closed. Okay, that club they had in Montclair is closed. I said they're all closed. But you know what? Bogies is still here. And there's a reason. Because we have unity. And even today, we know we still just own the building. Someone brought the business, but we stayed open for over close to 30, 40 years.
Yeah.
And it's very difficult. And see, in scripture says words are good, but deeds are divine. So I can sit up here and talk about unity, this, unity, that. But the proof, what we say, the proof is in the pudding. This man and I, okay, started Bogies in 1979.
Okay.
And to this day, we never fell out about business or money. And that's the lesson. So you can talk the talk, but you have to walk the walk. Yes. And of course, in the nightclub, and at one time we had Bogies, we had Paradisios, and we had El Castillo. We had 3 clubs going at the same time. But we never fell out about money. And this is what we do, because Ibn has a bigger car than me, or he got gator shoes and I got soft shoes, or and that's a problem that we have. But other races don't seem to have that. So Bogies, hey man, let me ask you a question. I'm gonna throw it back at you.
Sure.
What's greater, the Empire State Building or the pyramids?
Pyramids.
Because then you know why? They've been there for 4,000 years, brother. So you can talk about the pyramid, Scott's Manor. You can talk about they're gone, brother.
Yeah.
It's the test of time. That's why the pyramids, they're not as tall as the Empire State Building. But they've been there for 4,000 years and they're still there, man. So
absolutely. Absolutely. Boxing or basketball?
Basketball, because it reaches more people. And I've seen too many fighters get hurt. What I mean by that, their later years, they lose the speech or what have you. And basketball, it just touches more people.
Okay.
Boxing, I'm very disappointed because most of the fighters, most of them ended up broke. And that's sad.
Yes.
It's sad. Most of them started in poverty. And unfortunately, even like Manny Pacquiao. Manny, who I love, he's 42 years old, man. Why are you out there fighting some guy? At some point, but then even the great Muhammad Ali, when he lost to Trevor Berbick, I wasn't at that fight. He fought in Jamaica. I didn't go to that fight because my heart, I did not want to see the champ like that.
Yes.
And so they never know when to quit. Look at Roy Jones Jr. He was the fighter of the decade, man. He went all the way up the heavyweight and beat John Ruiz. We did that fight. And then he got knocked out by Tarver, and he ended up fighting in Russia. And come on, Roy. And Roy used to tell me, I'm not going to end up like the rest of them.
Yeah.
He used to tell me that when he was in his prime, man. So I would say basketball.
Mm. As far as your coaching hat, as far as best game you ever coached, is it one game you'd be like, you know what, I nailed this one?
The best game that I ever coached was when we played prime time in the Pro-Am League, and they had Anthony Mason, who played for the Knicks at the time.
Mm-hmm.
There was 4,000 to 5,000 people in Central Playground.
Yeah.
My backcourt was Mike Boyd and Robert Cole, two Orange legends,
Mm-hmm.
with about 10, 12 years separating, but that was my backcourt, Robert Cole and Mike Boyd. And we were down, and of course it was the New Jersey first playing the New York team. We never used pro players. They always used pro players against us. But we always believed that our system and our teams, we didn't need pro players. They always used pro players. I told you one time that I lost to Mark Jackson. They brought him in. He only played one game to beat us. But anyway, we were down 10 points, and Mike Boyd. So at that time, Anthony Mason was the point forward. He played point forward for the Knicks. So we started trapping him, take the ball out of his hands. And then Mike came down, and it looked like they used to call him Elevator Boy. They used to call him Elevator.
Yeah.
And he went up to dunk on Anthony Mason. Of course, Mason was a big muscle-bound guy, and he knocked him down. And I said, please don't start a fight out here, because that was Mike Boyd. He's a local legend, right?
Yes, yes.
And we came back after being 10 points down, and we won that championship. That was probably my best game.
Yeah. Any game you like to have back?
The one game that I like to have back would probably be when we lost the ECT championship to Valley, because that was the only loss we had that entire year. And Valley beat us 74-72, and we didn't win the ECT championship. We went on to win the state championship. We walked right through the states, and we ended up being second. But that loss, and people from Orange will tell you, that's over 50, they'll tell you that was probably one of the toughest losses we ever had.
Yeah. And that's the one with
that was Troy Webster.
Yeah.
Troy did work.
Mm-hmm.
It was two of them. They had another Caucasian. I forgot his name, was a Caucasian, but they did work.
Yeah.
And we didn't think that anybody could beat that team, not that Robert Cole team.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll tell you one more game that you'll like was James Giss was the top point guard at East Orange. He was the East Orange star. And of course, Robert Cole was the Orange star. So they had a regular season game, East Orange and Orange. It was so big, they put it in Upsala College, which is no longer there. It's the campus now. But back then, when you were old enough to remember Upsala College.
Yes.
The place was sold out. The police were there. People were actually trying to break into the doors to get into that game, because everybody wanted to see James Giss, who was the East Orange Hill, against Robert Cole and the Orange team. Both of them were undefeated at the time. And I shouldn't say this because we're not supposed to gamble, but my cousin and all, they were in the stands, and they were all East Orange guys. Well, Atari, and I must have bet $300 or $400, right? And I just said, no way they was gonna beat Orange, right? So the game was close, right? So at the halftime, halftime, I go down, they're shooting at the end, right? So I go down, everybody says, why is he leaving the stands? Right? Go down in. And I just lit into them. I'm not gonna lie to you. And I said, Hubert, be a man, Hubert, be a man. That was the code. He would go, I said, be a man, you're gonna be a man. I'm just hollering, screaming, getting on, you're doing this, you're getting that. And they came back and they beat Orange. It was never a debate again about who was the greatest point guard, whether it was James Giss or Robert Cole. That was one of the games that I really remember.
Elmwood or Central Playground?
Central Playground.
Yes.
That's close though. Elmwood, I mean, you had pros. Elmwood was, both of them a traditional player, but I got to say something about Harry James, who everybody knows. They named the league after him, and Elmwood, the park after him. Not the park, they named the court after him. But Harry ran both those leagues. First, he had a beef with East Orange. He said run all the leagues out of Elmwood, and then he moved to Central Playground. He ran the leagues out of Central Playground. So Harry, no one could run a league like Harry James. I mean, he just had when you in the Harry James League, it was a professional league. The timekeepers, the referees. He had a lot of NBA refs do the games. And it was no such thing as that, oh, we forgot our jersey. Can Ibn play? No. You don't have a jersey, you don't play. So Harry ran the league the right way. And he drew in the Pro-Am League, it was always 5 teams from New York and 5 teams from Jersey, which made the competition, you know what I mean, that much stiffer. So Central Playground.
Yeah. Best high school basketball play you ever seen?
That I ever saw?
You ever saw?
While they were in high school.
While they were in high school.
You're gonna laugh at this, but I gotta give props because and we don't see color. Was Kelly Tripucka from Bloomfield.
Yeah.
Kelly Tripucka ended up playing 8-9 years in the NBA, started for the Detroit Pistons.
Pistons.
So when he was in Bloomfield High School, man, I don't care who he played, Orange, E-Star.
He was giving it to him.
That Caucasian did work. And you got to he was a Larry Bird of high school back then, man. He did it all. Rebound, pass, shoot. He was on the max, foul line. The best high school player, and I saw all the greats. I coached a lot of them. I saw all the greats. But the best high school player that I ever saw was Kelly Tripucka.
Yeah.
You got to give it up, man. We don't see color.
You won't get no arguments from a lot of people on that. You won't get no arguments at all.
Kelly Tripucka.
Somebody who should have made it, however you define made it, whether it's to college or to the pros, somebody who should have made it.
Someone who should have made it was probably Mike Boyd.
Okay.
Because Mike had a complete game. He was 6'2", 6'1", 6'2". They used to call him Elevator Boy. That was his nickname, Elevator Boy. He could jump out of the sky, but he blew his knee out. He was starting for the University of West Virginia, which West Virginia was always a basketball power. And he should have never played that year. He should have never played that year. And we fought about it. Him and I and other people who cared about him, not just me. And we knew he shouldn't have played because he tore his knee up bad. And they played him. The coach played him. He never was the same because his knee. Nowadays, because you're talking about the 90s, but nowadays, they would repair it differently. But Mike, his defense, his shooting, his rebound, his ball handling, Mike would have made it. He would have made it to the NBA.
Yeah. A lot of people say that.
Mike was the truth.
He was, exactly. He definitely was that. Now let me ask, as far as you got to answer this. You're gonna get some arguments probably, but you got to your all-time starting 5 for Orange that come out of Orange High.
Now that is a great question, man. That's a great question.
The fun, you're gonna leave some people out, but
my point guard would be Robert Cole.
Okay.
My 2 guard would be Mike Boyd. My center would be a guy that you probably never heard of, but people who are watching this will appreciate it, is Bobby Butts, who played on the 68 team.
The undefeated state champion.
The undefeated team. He was 6'4" and built like a linebacker.
Okay.
And he never missed around the basket, fierce rebounder. My forwards would be, I coached all these guys. You're going to make enemies, but my forwards would be Reggie Miller.
Okay.
And Robert Skipper.
Okay.
So I took you from the late 60s.
Yeah, you did decades, yes.
2000s, all right? That
Now,
would be the fun team.
To have fun, who'd be the 6th man? We get sneak one in. Who'd be the 6th man?
You know what? To be fair, I got to take this back. See, you tricking me. Yeah. The shooting guard would have to be Greg Thomas.
Okay.
The 6th man would be Mike Boyd.
Okay.
That's only fair. Of course, I love Mike. he took my car to his prom. And I tell you, he took my car to the prom and came back 2 days after he's supposed to bring back the first day. But I love, but to be fair and honest, that would be the starting team. But Rob would be the point, Greg Tynes would be the shooting guard, Bob Butts would be the center, Robert Skipper, and Reggie Miller.
Who's the best to ever come out of Orange basketball player?
Robert Cole.
Robert Cole. Yeah.
And I'll tell you why. Greg was the best shooter that ever came out of Orange.
Okay.
But defensively, offensively, Robert Cole, his senior year, averaged 5.6 rebounds a game at 5'7". He did it. He rebounded. You could not, when he didn't want you to bring the ball up, you didn't bring the ball up. I love Greg. Greg was the best pure shooter that ever came out of Orange. But the best all-around player that ever came out of Orange was Robert Cole.
Yeah.
That you know, unless it was somebody in the 50s or 60s.
I got you. Yeah.
That I was around, and I coached every player that ever came out of Orange for 25 years straight. And he never missed a big foul shot. I don't care whether it was the state championship, the ECT, the Pro-Am League, the MCAP. He never, when I say never, the foul line meant nothing to him. I guarantee you, anybody that saw Robert Cole, he never had any pressure on him. I've never seen a player, whether it's even LeBron James or even now in the pros, you see guys that in a big moment. Robert Cole never missed a big foul shot. Never. From high school to college to the Pro-Am League to when we used to play in the Pro-Am League in other parts of the country. You know what I mean? And he was playing pros. He never missed a big foul shot.
Yeah. Money in the bank. Yeah.
It was money in the bank, man. So to me, all around, he wasn't the best shooter, but that was Greg Tynes. But as far as all around, he was probably the greatest player.
Yeah.
At 5'7", 5'7",
Yeah.
first team all state, man. First team, man.
Yeah.
And his team lost one game his senior year and was ranked second in the state.
Yeah. Nah, it's hard to dispute that. Now, even with yourself here, just your life in general, you feel you got your just due?
Yeah, I feel that because my just due comes from the fact that the guys that you interviewed and you told me, and Hassan told me, that my name came up. So I played a role in their life.
Okay.
So that is the act, and a lot of people, they know about the boxing because you turn on old fights and people say, hey man, I saw you on HBO. I saw you with, in the Mike Tyson fight. I saw you with the Roy Jones Jr. fight. And Manny Pacquiao, I see you on TV. I see you on HBO. That's great. So people know me for that. People know nationally I was the deputy mayor of public safety for the city of Newark. People know me for having bogeys and El Castillo in the clubs. But a lot of people don't even know that that was really a part of my life, was coaching basketball all those years. But my just due comes from seeing these guys be assets to society as opposed to detriment to society. And I know that I instilled some discipline in them, some caring, and I played a part in their life. And I was there, and of course we won't get personal, but you being a black man, I being a black man, and I would never do it. But listen, a lot of these guys got in a lot of trouble for a lot of different things, okay? And somebody had to be there for them, okay, and help them out of that trouble, whatever it might be, okay? But they got in trouble. Sometimes trouble is not always with the law. Sometimes it is, but trouble can be trouble.
Yes.
And conflict. I shouldn't say trouble. I say a lot of these guys had a lot of conflicts, okay, and it wasn't physical. They were a lot of conflicts, and I was there for them. So I really believe I got my just due.
Yeah.
I mean, and again, again, my barakats, my blessings come from God. So, and again, I can, when my day of judgment comes, they said, did you give back? And I can look anybody, and I can look the angels and say, yes, I gave back.
Yes.
So that's my just due.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Anything you would do different?
Oh man, that's a whole nother segment. No, we're not gonna get into that. No,
No
what
problem. No.
no what I probably would have done different, um, not as far as basketball, but one of the regrets I have as a deputy mayor when I first took over deputy mayor of public safety, I was very because my job was to clean up Board and Market,
Mhm.
and I was a little too hard on the vendors. I wish, and that bothers me even to the day, and it was 10, 12 years ago, but not that I didn't give them a warning, but I sent a too hard of a message,
Okay.
and it has nothing to do with basketball, but it's just something that when you say different. The other thing we would have done is we should have signed Manny Pacquiao to a long-term contract rather than the 3 years we signed him, because he went on to make millions of dollars, and we didn't benefit from that, but we gave him a start. So that'd be
Yeah. What's the best part about being Atari?
uh, uh, the respect that I receive from people.
Hmm.
That is the best part. Mayor Ted Green, I would tell you this: when he got inaugurated 4 years ago, when he became mayor of East Orange, there was over 1,000 people at the campus, and his father was there, his mother was there, his family was there, and I was on the side, directing traffic, make sure everything's all right. And he said in front of these 1,000 people, he says, "I want to thank my father, who's sitting there, for allowing that man," he pointed up to me,
Hmm.
"for allowing that man to raise me. Because I went to my father and asked, would he have a problem if I came under the tutelage of that man?" He pointed up to me with a total shock in front of these 1,000 people. Cory Booker, the United States Senator, Raspberry, all the politics, Joe D, they're all there. And he pointed up to me and he said, "I want to thank him for allowing my father, allowing that man to mentor and raise me."
Mm.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, you can't get any more accolades than that. Not in
Nah.
front of not in front of 1,000 people, and not in front of the top politicians in the entire state. So that accolade, I mean, that went through me, and a kid who was a teenager, never played basketball. Now I didn't coach him, but I just coached him in politics and life.
Hmm.
And he ended up, encouraged him to go back to college, encouraged him to, do things outside the box, and he became a councilman, and now he's the mayor of the whole city. So that's the accolades.
Yeah, I can't even only imagine that feeling. Yeah,
Yeah,
that had to
that's
be
a great feeling. Yeah.
yeah. Now, my last question, as far as what would this Atari, this point in your life, as far as what advice would you give that 17, 18-year-old knucklehead out of Montclair going to graduate Atari? What advice would you give him?
Don't be so wild and crazy.
Okay.
Don't be so hot tempered, and have more patience.
Hmm.
You know, patience is what they say. Patience is a virtue,
Yes.
and you and I know that we pray for patience. And I was told to be more patient with people, more patience in situations, um, and not be so intent on putting down the hammer, if you
Hmm.
know what I mean.
Yes.
Not that I was very aggressive. I didn't have to be as aggressive. I wish I had not been as aggressive as I was. But back then, being in I never, and I hope you appreciate this. See, I never had a normal childhood, because once I got into the movement, I was into the movement. So what I mean by that, once we started the Black Student Union, and I went right from there to the Black Community for Defense, and I went right from there to the Nation of Islam. I never had the go to the movies, let's hang out, let's party, let's go to the party, let's smoke some reefer, I never had the normal. Everything was structured. So
Yes.
everything was that, hey, you got to be able to receive pain or inflict pain. You got to be, everything was, structured. So I never had a normal childhood to where I could do what other people did, because everything was the movement.
Mm-hmm.
And back then, of course, I don't have to tell most people, even younger than you, know the structure of the Nation of Islam. Everything was structured.
Yes.
You did this, you did that. Well, BCD was the same thing. So everything was, don't smoke, you don't drink, you don't party, you don't curse, you don't. So everything was structured.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't regret that, because the discipline, when you go through life, the discipline and the structure is what you appreciate.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what you try to pass on.
Yes.
So I don't have many regrets, except that I wish that I had been not so fast to put down the hammer.
Yeah. That I wanted to say this, know a lot for people in your life for a reason here. And in me just having this conversation, just this brief conversation, just a little glimpse into your world here. Like I'm like very appreciative. I just remember even, obviously like I shared earlier, the summer leagues and this and that, or having to play against those orange teams, in the summer, like trying to find a reason for you to yell at them. You know what I mean? By me doing my part here. But even outside of that, I mean, then obviously later on, not even later on, but during that time, befriending Hatim, man, Allah bless him here, and just like making a connection, like, you was his father here. I didn't know Sharif as well, but like I said, Hatim, I knew pretty well, and I think it's just the opportunity to just sit here, just to, like I said, the some of the knowledge, just the conversation, and everything. Yeah, I'm like so taken back by this. I mean, I probably say this to everybody, but it's so much the truth there. And like I said, I really appreciate the time that you spent with me here. And you being officially you somehow helped it be officially it one way or another, some indirect way here. Because again, like I said, when it was all said and done here, I was just told as a kid, like you make those where you come from, you make them proud, you make your family proud, and everything else here. But I'm just proud to just sit here and just have an opportunity to talk to you. Yeah, thank you so much.
Well, I want to say this, man. I mean this from the bottom of my heart. What you're doing is going to inspire some people. The social media, and I'm proud of people like yourself who are using these tools of social media, okay, to get this message out. Because the mayor, Ted Green, always says this. He says, there was 12 or 13 of us that heard the same message when I was 15 years old. He's preaching to us and do this, do that, and stuff. And I just decided to stay with the program. So it's not about reaching a whole lot of people, because what you're doing is going to inspire somebody. It's going to make somebody pick up or go on the computer. And I say, my days is pick up a book. But now just hit the computer and look things up and see how things were. So I want to thank you for your service. I'm telling you, man, trust me. And I call my kids. They're not kids anymore. They're all grown now. But my kids have called me and they're very happy and proud of what you're doing. Keep doing it, man, because it's inspiring, man, and it means a lot to people.
Nah, thank you. When you keep mentioning Mayor Green here, I love to get him too. Like, so whoever, I mean, like I said, I'm all open to whoever wants to jump on.
Well, when you want to get Mayor Green, just call me. You have my number.
Not a problem here, but
Yeah.
again, like I said, Tari, appreciate everything, and like I said, blessings to you and your family here, and I'm sure one way or another, like I said, we'll definitely be in touch.
May God continue to bless you and your family.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum.
Well, like I said,
Yeah, just had to take a slight pause because it's just again, just taking all this in, just the opportunity to talk with Atari. Just like I said, I got a tiny little look at his life here, but just remember him growing up and just the stand up guy that he is and things that he's done. Like I said, it's just been great. With that being said, though, I'm gonna slide out. I put my hand over my heart. That means I feel you. Yeah.